Good evening and welcome to the April 2023 meeting of the Penfield Historic Preservation Board. We'll call the meeting to order. First item is the approval of the minutes from the March meeting. Any comments, corrections? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Okay, they consider them approved. Go to our first action item, which is the request for approval for an above-ground pool at 2059 5 Mile Line Road. Board members, you might remember from several years back, we did approve some improvements to the house. The house looks pretty good compared to what it was several years back. And this is an above-ground pool for behind it. Shannon, do you want to describe what they're trying to do?
Sure. Yes. So I'm pulling up some photos for you guys. Okay. So they're looking to install an above-ground pool in the backyard. The pool is proposed to be 16 feet by 24 feet. I include here are some photos for you guys for reference. And then the location is going to be pretty much in the center area of the backyard there. Here's a survey map so you can kind of see that it's next to the house but in the middle of the open yard, and the yard is already fenced in from the front. And I have some photos of the lot if you guys want to see them, but I did send them to you already.
Yes, from the ones that you sent, it seemed to me that with the fencing that's already in place, you're probably not going to be able to see much.
Yeah, that's my, yeah, here I'll pull up a photo so you guys can see. So this is a view from the road. So it is a 6-foot tall fence, so you most likely won't really be able to see it, if at all, from the road.
And they want to install the one that you had the picture of, with that's got the kind of the walkway all the way around.
Yeah, so this is from the brochure of the pool that they are looking to install. And they do need a building permit for this. I have already completed the site inspection, which passes, and everything that I can tell so far meets code requirements. So as soon as you guys approve a certificate of appropriateness, we will go ahead with the building permit.
Okay. Any comments from the board, concerns about it?
While we all know that pools are not a historic feature, I think it is what it is, and I don't think it takes away from the house in any way. And I think it's fine. You know, these are the kind of things that people want. They will, obviously this house is taken care of. And I just don't, I mean, again, I know it's not a historic feature, but at the same time, it doesn't detract from the house being the historic feature. So I'm in favor.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, was that a motion, Don?
That is a motion. How about that?
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
And a second? Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it seems to be unanimous, so that's our go-ahead, Shannon, to complete the work with the homeowner.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, next we just have a couple of informational items that have sort of been standing items now for a while, the Clark House and the Clark Road barn. I did talk to Debbie Draw earlier today, got a little bit of an update, but Shannon, I think you're up to date on these two.
Yep, so there's not much of an update with the Clark House right now. We're waiting for updates from Bergman. They're working on them actively, so no big updates right now. I'll just keep you guys posted, but wanted to keep it on the agenda. What I'm always keeping updated with the town board and all the town board meetings and what's going on with it. So I'll keep you guys updated. as
The
we
only
move
thing I
through.
want to make sure, Shannon, this I talked to Debbie about a little bit today, was to make sure that this board is included when there are discussions with respect, particularly to the House portion of that project. Because I know there was a meeting last week, or maybe it was the week before, with some people that we just found out about. So we'd like to be involved in those kinds of discussions.
Okay, yeah, I can relay that, I have before, but I'll continue to point it out that we want to be included and updated as things come, which I try to do as much as possible for you guys.
I'm not aware of any board meeting that we had.
It wasn't a board meeting. There was some visitors to the House.
I mean,
who had-
Kathy, when she went to visit.
Yes, some of us went there on Monday.
Oh, yeah, just you and Anna went, correct?
With Debbie.
And right,
And
and
Debbie and Bill Porre, who's the Carrington historian, and Eric.
Right, it was more of just a walkthrough update. It wasn't necessarily a meeting of sorts. I was invited but didn't attend because I didn't
Town
feel I
board
was
wasn't
needed to.
invited.
No, I
We
just
weren't
think
invited. It was a separate meeting.
particularly when, as I understand it, the chair of the Fairport Preservation Board was one of the people that was
No.
there,
No, he's the Fairport historian.
the historian.
Kathy's
And-
counterpart.
And those types of people will have comments and concerns and experience that would be helpful, at least for me, would be helpful.
Right. Well, one thing that his name is Bill, he and I suggested is that the town get someone from Landmark Society to come out and evaluate what parts of the house are original and what, when, if they can tell when certain parts were added. Because there's a lot more that went on in that house than you can originally just look at from the outside and tell. What I was wondering is if the lodge is put on there, is that going to require a certificate of appropriateness because it's a local landmark?
Well, I know it requires a certificate of appropriateness to demolish that portion.
But it's making an exterior change.
As far as I'm aware, it does require a certificate of appropriateness to both demolish and do any sort of remodeling.
So we just want to make sure that we stay as close to the project as we can.
Sorry, did anyone else have anything to say about the Clark House? I was going to move on to the barn.
I guess my comment overlaps. I'm wondering, I know it was just the house that was designated, but right now, I'm wondering if we should at least consider designating more of the property, whether it be in the back 9, the barn, and things of that nature. I had complained before, and Marie had somebody from the town get back to me about the trees. I appreciate he got back to me. I don't agree with what's done in any way, shape, or form. And now, all of a sudden, there's a tremendous amount of excavation going on along the creek.
It's a drainage improvement project.
Well, but that's fine, Linda, but I think a little bit of transparency would help. And just because the town happens to know about
It's
it.
on the website. It's under projects, under review. That's what Debbie's been trying to really promote that. If you see something and you're not familiar with what's going on, go to the website because it'll be listed there, different homes that are going up or projects that the
I didn't see
employees-
it. I didn't see a map of that, of where it was and how it was going to be. And why is there drainage?
I don't know, maybe Shannon knows more particulars.
No, that would be more engineering. I'm not working on that project.
But I don't think that's a great answer for a piece of property. It's a pretty important piece of property, and that's why the town board bought it. And when you go over there, it is ripped out, which might be a great thing, it might not. But how are you going to stop, if we get heavy rains now in the spring, how are you going to stop the erosion?
Conversation with the engineers. I can't answer that. You have to ask them.
Well, again, I guess that that answer in itself is why I'm wondering whether or not we should be, the answer might be no, but whether or not we should be more active about protecting that property. It is just, I don't know what's happening to it, to be honest with you.
I don't know, Don, that it's under our purview in any fashion, but we can.
No, yeah, and that might be
find
that
out.
you don't want to designate that as having some value, but I don't know. I think I at least need to bring it up that maybe we should think about that.
Well, how do you determine how much of that property to designate?
We'd have to look into it.
Whole thing?
We'd have to look into it. I don't know the answer.
And it may be too late if they're already.
Yeah, it
started
probably
work
is
there.
too late. Much of it has been, the trees will never be okay. I mean, that'll never come back. So,
Well, I'd have no problem with seeing if we can even think about it.
okay.
Okay, any news on the barn side?
So for the Clark Road barn, the town board has officially approved the advisory committee. So the committee will be providing input and recommendations related to future actions pertaining to the barn itself. So the committee will include representatives from the town, from boards and town residents, as well as subject matter experts. So currently, the town board is working on getting together who those people are, and that will be done soon, I assume, and kind of go from there. I am going to be serving on the board, so I will be able to keep you guys posted and updated as things move through, and then we'll go from there. But that's kind of the only update for now on the barn.
We, last couple of months, we've talked about efforts the town could do to preserve the building. One of them was to tarp the roof so that it doesn't continue to deteriorate. I haven't noticed that happening yet, and I'm wondering if there's a plan for that.
I haven't heard any feedback about it. I'm hoping maybe the committee that could be one of the first actions that the committee puts forward is current preservation and continuing to start keeping it from any further deterioration.
Yeah, I don't know that we need a committee to do that. Can't you just send a couple town employees over and put a tarp over it? Because it's just going to continue to rot away.
It has been brought up before. Unfortunately, I haven't heard any follow-up on it, though.
Who would be in charge of something like that?
I think, I think possibly the town board could give approval to do it, and then who's responsible for doing it? I assume DPW.
Well, because it is a very important issue. I have seen buildings that have been let go, and between the time that somebody looked at them to the time that the project began, they have deteriorated so much that the whole scope of work had to be changed, including mold, whatever.
Right.
So is there a way in the town to expedite it and I don't know, you just do it as ongoing maintenance?
I can't even answer that. All I've ever gotten as a response to that question is that we need a certain kind of truck in order to get up on top to do such a thing, and we don't have that. That's about all I've ever. Right, Shannon, you've heard the same?
That's all I've ever heard as well, is that we don't have, the town doesn't own the equipment to get up that high on the roof. It would have to be rented, or somebody would have to be hired to do it.
I would suggest they could rent a lift.
Yeah, it would have to be a process where someone would have to rent the lift and have the work done. So it's not something that can be done tomorrow.
No, but I would argue it's something that should have been done years ago.
Yeah,
So-
I don't disagree with you. I will reach
I
out
guess I'm
to,
asking Linda, what's the hold up in doing it?
That's my response. That's all I received when I inquired.
See, I just don't think that I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
And I guess that's the whole thing, is like, it almost seems like the tail is wagging the dog. If the people who are in charge say, do this, the answer should not be, we come back with more excuses. The answer should be, it's done. You know, the answers we're getting at camp engineering, whatever. I mean, why is that? Why isn't this being done? If, you know, whoever is the supervisor or the board, whatever it is, if they think it's appropriate, then it should be done. It's not a question of coming up with excuses from staff people who are working. I mean, we give Shannon like millions of things to do, and she produces every time. You know, I just don't think this is a great answer to any of this.
Well,
But, you know, at the same time, I will admit, if the supervisor and the board and whatever do not want to pursue this, then that's why we elect them, to make that choice.
Yeah, I have to agree to, well, first of all, I've brought it up, and Linda's brought it up, and Sharon's brought it up. So none of us can answer why something hasn't been done. But to the extent of that they decided to have a group put together to look at the barn, then you would think that should drive at least some temporary work done to preserve what's there. So it kind of doesn't make sense. But I'll take it up again as I can with Debbie, and I'm sure that
I will reach out to Debbie and to Eric Tate, who is the department head for DPW. I will reach out to them. We're off tomorrow, but I will reach out to them on Monday. I already made a note for myself, and I will try and get a more definite answer as to why we can't do it, or what's the holdup, or what the process is to get it done.
Yeah. And again, if the supervisor and the board say, we don't want to go ahead, I'm okay with that. I mean, they've made it.
Then we don't need an advisory group to look at it.
Yeah, they've made a business decision, and what's they think is best for the town. That's why we elect them, and that's why we support them. But if they're on board with putting the tarps on or doing some kind of preservation, then I don't think that's negotiable for anybody to give reasons why not to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we're just looking for a definite answer one way or the other, why or
Right.
why not.
Right.
Okay. I will reach out and try and get that answer for you guys.
As will I. Any other discussion items?
I don't have anything. We do have a guest here tonight. If we're done with our regular agenda, he'd like to come up and talk to us a little bit, fittingly about the trees at Shadow Pines. His name is Mike Heath, and he has a little presentation that I'll be taking you guys through. Are we all set with this regular discussion to have him talk for a little bit?
Sure.
Okay, great. Come on up, Mike. This you can come right here, and that mic should be on.
Okay, thanks.
I'll pull up the presentation and just let me know when you want me to flip to the next slide.
So Mike Heath, a resident of Penfield, and just with a lot of the interest in Shadow Pines and what the town's doing with it and everything, I did a little background research, a little historical information that might be useful for all of us as we make decisions and the continuation of managing that land by the town. So some historical images that show a little bit of the background of where we got to, where we are, I think is useful for all of us to have. So thanks for the opportunity. So the next slide. So as I say, as everybody's aware, the town of Penfield purchased the land in 2018 after the town vote. There's been cleanup in the park, some trees taken down, and other things. The disc golf course has gone in. I think it's great. There's a plan currently in place, and I guess it's gone out to bid for development of the northeast section of the north part of the park to put in bathrooms and pavilion and pickleball courts and things and such. That'll require a removal of some trees and things, so I was kind of curious, and also people have posed questions about the trees and like if you remove them, do you have to replace them, or is it a policy or a recommendation or something by the town? I think it's a recommendation. So my personal curiosity was piqued then at what was the history there. So So I did a search just of the northern section just and a bunch of, databases of imagery and things just to say what was it like in the past. So I found a lot of imagery actually all the way back to 1930, which was really, really interesting, really cool, and is informative today. I downloaded the images and kind of matched them all up, registered them so we can just look at the same place on the ground through time. So next slide, please. I have all these layers, and this is just kind of documentation of what they are and where they came from. Next slide. So I made a bunch of maps. We'll look at a few of them here. Next slide. So this is kind of the current state or close to it in 2021 that we're familiar with today of what the area looks like. Next, we'll jump back to 2019. And so I put this in because it's really interesting to see. At that time, the imagery that was captured on the next slide shows some LiDAR data, which is like the elevation of the ground basically, and elevation of the trees. So it really shows and highlights where the trees are. The red colors are higher off the ground, so they're like the mature trees and stuff that are taller and presumably older. It's interesting to look at this then, and then I'll keep on the next slide this LiDAR, so you can see where the trees are, and if we go back here, so if you look particularly at those areas I point out, those are areas where trees were removed, because this is imagery in 2017, and it was by the road, and I'm sure there was good reason for that, the trees or safety or something like that, but that's kind of the changes that we've seen. But so, as we contemplate moving forward and some trees will have to be removed to develop sections of the park, I was curious if those had been there a really long time or what. So next slide, I'll jump back to 1930. Wow, I mean, Penfield Fields, right? I mean, maybe I'm just, new here and don't know all the history, but it wasn't all trees, it was all farmland for the most part. And I'm sure you can see if you look very closely, probably where the Clark House is, it's down at the lower portion of that. The upper right intersection is Whalen and Atlantic. It's a little hard to tell from this time frame because it doesn't have the features that we're aware of. So let's look at what happened to the land. So if we jump forward, this is in 1981. So there are some sections when highlighted in red at top where those trees went in by that time of 81. Another red section down there where other trees went in and things. You can obviously see the development of that neighborhood in the corner. Some other imagery from 1951 shows that maybe the topmost, it's again in that inset, is by the intersection of Whalen and Browncroft, where some of those trees went in probably at that time in 1951. Next slide. So by 1988, we start to see the current, shape, current state start to take shape as the golf course went in. It looks like from some other imagery, and there's too much to include here, that by 1985 or so, a lot of those trees were planted. And so that's kind of, as we look at maybe taking out trees, how long were they there for, I guess, is kind of a point of this. Next slide. So these trees are growing and this and that, nice healthy golf course and stuff. By 2002, forward some more. 2009, we can see there the variety of trees and things. I know there's talk if you take out trees, what should you plant or something to have a good variety for health and such. So just one more slide. So summary and thoughts, it was a cool little project to do, to just pull up and find all this stuff and look at the history. And hopefully this can be a little bit informative. It's not like the land was treed from, 1,000 years ago or something. It was used for fields and things. At that time. The trees that are there, though, if we like the feeling of the park and stuff, the trees there are roughly, 37 or 38 years old. Maybe you're all aware of that, but it was informative to me. Some of the trees might have gone as early as 1951 or so, and I think that one of the areas in the development, there's going to be a parking lot where those trees are. That's what's planned. It's a little bit of a shame, I think, to lose some of that. I know last night there was I watched the the town board meeting, and there were some folks from the pickleball that said, we want to preserve the trees that are there for shade as much as we can in a reasonable way, and also for wind that affects the game and things like that. So I think everybody who or a lot of people, I'm assuming, I guess, who wanted to save shadow pines or whatever, were interested in the character of the place and the shadow pines, right? And so I think we'd like to preserve what we can there. That's just my 2 cents. So it would take about that long if we plant new trees for them to get to the size that they are now. Maybe varieties grow faster, but anyway. I think it'd be interesting to kind of look at what the trees are that are there. I don't know for the Conservation Board and things like if we're looking to replace trees, knowing what's there now, what we take out, I think could be useful in that process for information as they move forward and as the development of the park moves forward. So I'm not saying we shouldn't change anything. I'm just saying that we should look and try to preserve what we can as far as the green space and work within that as best we can as we move forward. So that's all I have. Thanks for your time.
Like, have you shown this to the Parks Department? Because it's really outside of our...
I just showed up one day and I shared it with the town, with engineering department. I just kind of gave them a dump and walked them very, very quickly in about 3 minutes through it. So they have a copy of it. I thought just by coming here, I didn't know if I should come to the Conservation Board or a town board or whatever, but at least here it's sort of on record, like it could be referred back to. So
I think it would be, I'd like you to send it to Debbie for the town board. I'll take a look at it because we did talk about the whole point of the trees when the pickleball, the people that came the other night were really good. They made a really good reasoning for those trees, whatever shape they are, to stay for the whole purpose of the pickleball court, to the players to be able to play without the wind and all that. The talk was always been that the DPW wanted to take down the diseased trees, right, and then you replant trees, but like you say, they take a while. This is an interesting dynamic, and it's not set in stone that those trees are coming down either. So, that'd be a good one for all of us to take a look.
Managing and making good decisions is all, and you probably will need to take some trees out to do it.
Right.
There was someone at one of the other meetings who'd come in and talked about, their opinion was that some of the folks that might do work would come in and largely it's easier for them if they flatten a lot of the area to be able to work. And if I look at in detail, I didn't put it in here, but the overlay of the plan, right? And so as I say, some of those larger trees are where a parking lot's going to be.
Yeah.
There's other ones that, where the path would be very close to the tree, and I hope we can save what we can in the process and not
Maybe
take
move
down
things
anything
around
more
a
than is
little bit.
necessary.
Yeah,
That's
sorry.
all.
I would have to do some further research on the years, but I know the one generation of Clarks married into the Brown family from the Brown Brothers Nursery. So it might well be that some of those fields were actually growing sites for nursery trees that were sold. So they might not show up as trees if they were that small.
Okay.
But I have to look into what years that actually occurred there. But it was early to mid 1900s sometime.
Okay, interesting.
So some of the trees might be left from Brown Brothers, too.
This is amazing work. I just can't believe you did all this.
Thanks.
This is just,
Public data online. Is
but it's
available,
just
so,
phenomenal.
yeah.
Your
Thanks.
time.
Thanks.
Your time and effort.
Appreciate it.
I think it's great.
Great. And I'm going to send the town board this PowerPoint presentation and let them know that you spoke through the presentation as well, if they wanted to take a look at it, and we'll have it as a resource.
Great. And you can contact me if they have any questions. Right?
Absolutely,
Thanks
yeah.
very much.
Thank you so much for coming, Mike.
Yeah, thank you.
Great.
To Don's point from before, though, we obviously have opinions about it, but I guess we can't have an official opinion unless we were to get involved in designation of further parts of the property.
But to be honest with you, Tom, if I had seen this presentation beforehand, I don't know that I would have even brought up the designation, because this is exactly the kind of things that is good town management. This is just phenomenal that someone has done all this work, can show us what it is, knows what the trees are. I mean, you're just getting my opinion from what I see and like. I don't know what was there. Now we do. I just think this is just a really good thing, and I hope everybody in the process from top down pays attention to this, because it really, it shows you, it would, any decision make off this is a more educated decision. And the more information you get, the better the outcome.
But there is a department, there is a Parks Department that is responsible for really making any decisions related to this type of information.
Well, the Parks Department's under the Department of Public Works.
Okay. So it's DPW. Yep. Okay. Anything else? Any other topics, discussion?
I don't have anything, and if anyone else does.
Have a motion
Move to adjourn.
to adjourn? In a second? Okay,
May 4th.
we are adjourned.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you to PCTV.
May 4th is the next.
And I just got a text from Mr. Kohl.